In this video, we will compare the Lambda-class Imperial shuttle of Star Wars to the Danube-class Runabout of Star Trek, choose 4 categories in which to compare them, and come to a conclusion as to which one is the better spacecraft. I have chosen these 2 craft because they're comparable in size, speed, and purpose. They are relatively short-range vessels, designed to carry cargo and personnel from point A to point B. They are not capital ships, but in effect auxiliaries. They are capable of vertical takeoff and landing and can land on planetary surfaces. The runabouts are mostly seen in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, although one appears in the 6th season Next Generation episode Timescape. Remarkably, in Star Trek, we have a class of ship the names of which follow a rule. Danube-class runabouts, all named for rivers: the Orinoco, the Mekong, the Ganges, the Rio Grande, etc. It is a fun exercise, at least to those of us who like lists, to come up with river names for runabouts that might have been: the Congo, the Rhine, the Amazon, the Humber, the Great Ooze. Well, perhaps not the latter. In Star Wars, we get the name Tidarium, and in later media, we get the scavenger hunt. There are fewer named vessels as, of course, we see them mostly in the film Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. The Runabout is warp capable, with a maximum speed of warp 5, which, according to the Star Trek Encyclopedia, is 214 times the speed of light. She could therefore cover 55 light years in about 2.5 months at maximum warp. The shuttle Tidarium is certainly capable of faster than light travel. We saw her engage her hyperdrive in Return of the Jedi. According to certain Star Wars technical manuals, she has a range of about 55 light years. It is said the distance between the Rebel fleet and the second Death Star in Return of the Jedi at the time the Tidarium leaves for Endor is a few hundred light years, so we must assume the shuttle stopped to refuel on her way, and presumably to allow her passengers and crew to stretch their legs at the Star Wars equivalent of a little chef. But the film doesn't give us much indication of how long the journey took. Not much time would be my guess, and given the speed at which spacecraft go from one corner to the galaxy to the other, we can probably say the Lambda-class shuttle is faster than the Danube-class Runabout. The excellent Star Wars technical commentaries on the website stvsw.net suggest the cargo capacity for a Lambda-class shuttle may be some 80 cubic meters, although this depends on the accuracy of certain deck plans. Given the 2 landing legs, the weight would have to be distributed very carefully, but loading and offloading would be easy with the boarding ramp. The Runabout certainly has more than 80 cubic meters, especially if we factor in the aft compartment. The Runabout carries with it a cargo module, which is fixed between the command module at the front and the warp sledge, which partially encloses it. This module space is highly adaptable and can be used by modules fitted for extra passengers, scientific laboratories, cargo, or extra weapons. This is a plus for the Runabout, as it can be easily adapted to be fully mission relevant. But the location of the module presents a problem. Whilst replacing the module on Deep Space Nine surely involves a lift underneath the landed Runabout, would a colony or a planet have such a facility? Any supplies would have to be offloaded via the Runabout hatch. Whilst the boarding ramp makes loading and unloading an Imperial shuttle easy, the Runabout's cargo module and the additional space offered by the aft compartment gives the Runabout the edge as far as cargo capacity goes. Although, to be fair, in the Star Wars universe there exist cargo-specific versions of the Imperial Shuttle which are probably capable of greater loads. Anyone who appreciates the aesthetics of science fiction will know that Star Trek and Star Wars have a different aesthetic. Usually, the spacecraft of Star Trek have a certain elegance, while Star Wars spacecraft are much more practical and lived in. The Runabouts and the Imperial Shuttle switch this. The Runabout is boxy in shape, with more angles, and it has the look of a prize fighter. For all that, its catamaran-like warp sledge and its stern windows do lend it a degree of elegance. The Imperial Shuttle, with its pseudo-wings and angled command module, is a cleaner design than many of its original Star Wars trilogy contemporaries. It looks more fragile when compared to other craft, and is more elegant than the Runabout. It also makes far more of an entrance. The chicken legs of the Lambda-class shuttle, though, are a drawback, both in aesthetics and practicality. It wasn't until I had to model the shuttle that I realised it only had 2 landing legs. I had supposed a quartet. Perhaps I had consciously ignored the 2 legs when playing Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. We can suppose the boarding ramp adds to the stability of the landed shuttle, although it does seem rather flimsy when compared to the landing legs. The wings make the design, with the upper dorsal bringing to mind the jib of a sailing ship. But the wings are clearly not aerodynamic and would not promote lift whilst the craft was in the atmosphere of a planet, nor would this be of much use in the vacuum of space. They must be a means of cooling the shuttle, for shedding excess heat from the engines or onboard power plant. But this begs the question, why don't the other spacecraft have wings for the same purpose? As the X-Wing fighters also have wings and are also smaller craft, do the larger spacecraft shed their excess heat in another way? It is suggested on the website tsvsw.net that the cockpit structure of the shuttle might nod, dipping down on landing and rising up when the shuttle is in flight, rather like the nose of a Concorde. This is an interesting idea, and it would explain, in-universe, the differences in the angle of the head of the shuttle between the full-size mock-up and the model. Whilst we're on the subject of the cockpit, we should note a practical problem. With the boarding ramp down, there doesn't seem to be an easy way for the pilots to leave the cockpit. This is not an issue for the Runabout pilots who have plenty of room, and yet there is something to be said for the shuttle's delivery of its passengers. The manner in which the shuttle slowly folds up its wings as it comes into land, the sight of Darth Vader or the Emperor sweeping down the shuttle ramp, these are far more commanding than if they stepped down from the access hatch of a Runabout. The grand entrances of these characters require more than a Danube-class Runabout is capable of. The Lambda-class shuttle has no less than 10 gun barrels, 6 are blaster cannons and 4 are laser cannons. There is a pair of blasters fitted to both the port and starboard wings, and there is another pair astern, which I will call stern chasers. The 2 pairs of laser cannons are mounted forward. The Danube-class Runabout, in its normal configuration, is equipped with 6 phaser emitters, a pair to port and starboard on the command module, another pair to port and starboard on the warp sledge, and a pair of stern emitters. It also comes with 2 torpedo tubes, launching a pair of micro-photon torpedoes. Without knowing the effectiveness of phasers and blasters, it is difficult for me to judge which is the more powerful. If they are capable of inflicting similar damage, then it would seem the Lambda-class shuttle has the edge over the Danube-class Runabout, even taking into account the microphoton torpedoes. After all, there are only 2 of them. So, we have seen that the Lambda-class Shuttle wins against the Danube-class Runabout as far as speed is concerned, but the Runabout wins in the cargo capacity category. Aesthetically and practically, there are advantages and disadvantages on both sides. Whilst on the subject of weapons, the Runabout is outgunned. Although this depends on how powerful the weapons are on both classes of spacecraft, and it may be the case there are others with a better understanding of this subject. On the face of it, the Lambda-class Imperial Shuttle wins, which surprises me personally, as I thought the opposite would be true. But if I had to choose one, I would choose the Runabout, simply because it looks the more comfortable of the 2. Imagine being on a really long space journey, with no little chef or service station en route, and the fully dark side force capable Emperor sitting across from you. It would be a very long journey indeed.